Hi everyone, I'm Aditya,
And I'm Adarsh.
and this is your slice of sports with Demont Moments.
Yep. So we're just going to dive right into what is turning into one of the best NBA Finals series in recent memory. The Pacers and Thunder, who just completed a thrilling game 4 yesterday in Indiana, with the Thunder taking it 111 to 104 to even up the series. It's actually, we've had 3 games completed since our last episode. So we're going to touch on all these games and examine what we think is going to happen as this series unfolds. Starting off with game 2, not much to say here. It was a 16-point win for the Thunder. That the final score was not really indicative of the competition level. The Thunder dominated this game, as you would expect for a team that was desperate and already had taken a big loss in game 1. But moving on to game 3, this was, I felt, a huge turning point in this series, a chance for the Thunder to take back home court. But Indiana held strong and led by 27 points off the bench from Ben Mathurin and 21 points from Pascal Siakam, 22 points from Halliburton, along with 11 assists, 9 rebounds. Kind of a statement win for Indiana in game 3.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the biggest thing that we should shout out is TJ McConnell. Absolute masterclass off the bench. Especially in that second quarter, he was just going for the steals, getting the assists, getting the points, just doing everything. And I think you definitely need that against a team like OKC that has like kind of crazy bench depth. And if you can have, a guy who can really pump up your team and really show your fan base that you're here to fight, I think that's definitely an important part. And he was there as a statement in game 3, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Pacers bench is a huge, huge asset. In game 3, they had 3 guys off the bench with a plus minus of 12 or better. McConnell, as you mentioned, Mathurin, who had 27 points in 22 minutes, shot 9 of 12 from the field. Huge scoring contribution. And then Obi Toppin was a team best plus 18, despite only scoring 8 points on 4 of 8 shooting. He had a big game 1, but he's playing a lot of minutes because of his ability to be switchable on defense, his athleticism and finishing around the basket, but his three-point shooting has been a great asset as well. Um, for Oklahoma City, game 3, it was a really poor game for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 24 points on 9 of 20 shooting. He had 6 turnovers versus 4 assists. It just didn't look comfortable all game long. Andrew Nembhard was in his grill, really making things difficult. And Indiana didn't really need to double him that much. It just felt like they were overwhelming him with their full court pressure and active hands and trying to force someone else to make plays. Jalen Williams had 26, but on 9 of 18 shooting. He's had some quietly very good performances of late. But Chet Holmgren, 20 points, struggled with three ball, and some of these other guys for Oklahoma City are struggling with their shot, most notably Cason Wallace, who's starting this series as Oklahoma City's trying to go with a smaller lineup with more perimeter defense, but he has really struggled and wouldn't be surprised to see him play less minutes going forward.
Yeah, I mean, looking at like their percentages, OKC shot like 46% from three, but Indiana only shot 33%. Um, I think the success that they had in this game was definitely attacking the basket. And I actually I kind of saw Shea as a bit more aggressive than games 1 and 2. He was definitely driving to the basket, but I think the fact that their role players weren't really stepping up like they did in game 4, but that we'll discuss a bit later. But I think that's the reason why they lost. Their role players didn't step up. But the two things that I kind of noticed, one on each side of or one for each team, I really liked Shea's aggressiveness and I really liked Hallie's floaters. It seems like they were getting in that pick and roll action, and then Halliburton would either go for the floater, and he was making a lot of them. It was a high percentage look, or he would dish it off to the roll man, and like Miles Turner, Pascal Siakam would make it from there.
Yeah, and I really liked seeing Halliburton change up his style of attacking. Usually, lets the game come to him, shoots a lot of threes, gets to the rim a bit off the pick and roll. But that floater shot is important when you got a guy like Holmgren sitting in the paint protecting the rim. But yeah, great win for Indiana in game 3. But the game we really want to talk about is game 4. A gritty comeback win for Oklahoma City with their season on the line. Goes into Indiana with a fourth quarter comeback. 111-104 final, led by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's terrific fourth quarter. He scored 15 of his 35 points in the fourth, including going 8 for 8 from the free throw line in the clutch to ice this game. I mean, it really looked for majority of this game. that Oklahoma City was about to go down 3-1. Of course, only one team has ever come back from a 3-1 deficit in the finals. And yeah, I mean, Indiana controlled this game from the start with a hot shooting first quarter and a really great third quarter. And they were up by as much as seven late, but just clutch shot after clutch shot from Jalen Williams and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to bring the Thunder back in this one.
Yeah, 100%. I think they were really effective in their defense in like the first three quarters of the game. I saw they were really effective in doubling Shea when he had the ball, but they were even better in just denying Shea the ball in general, just making sure that he doesn't even have a chance, whether that be off the inbound or when the ball is in motion. I think they were really effective in that, but obviously in that fourth quarter, their offense went stagnant and they're not a defensive team, so I think they were really effective in that for those first three quarters, but I think they definitely just choked it away in the fourth.
Yeah, and for Indiana, I mean, live by the Mathurin, die by the Mathurin. Benedict Mathurin had 27 points off the bench in game three, as mentioned. In this game, 14 minutes, scored 8 points and missed three, not one, not two, but three clutch free throws late, with Indiana trying to claw their way back in the final seconds. I mean, this kind of just who he is. He's a young player, inconsistent, but he was in the game because Aaron Nesmith fouled out late, which some really poor decisions guarding Gilgeous-Alexander. But Indiana, another cold shooting night, 31% from three-point range. Miles Turner was 0 for 6 from deep. Halliburton was 1 for 7. Indiana's known as a team that can get out in transition and get a lot of good three-point looks, but while they've been good in transition, they really haven't been able to unleash their three ball in these last three games since game one's hot shooting performance. Um, but despite that, they were so close to taking that 3-1 lead, just couldn't get enough contributions offensively, especially in the last 3 minutes, did not have a single field goal. Their only point came on the one free throw that Mathurin didn't miss. So that's that championship defense that we knew Oklahoma City was capable of playing. And then just SGA hitting some clutch buckets and clutch free throws helped them pull this one out, despite, you know, pretty top heavy contributions. 35 for SGA, 27 for Jalen Williams, a surprise 20-point performance off the bench for Alex Caruso. Um, but again, a lot of struggles for the rest of the guys. 6 points for Lou Dort. Cason Wallace, who I mentioned was struggling, he got benched in this game. Scored 2 points in 19 minutes, 1 for 5 shooting. Um, the lack of production from the bench guys for OKC has been a quiet theme. Indiana's bench is just like so much better. But when SGA plays the way he did in the fourth quarter, it's tough to win.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, looking at the stats, OKC shot 19% from three. I mean, if you're the Pacers, like this was the game for you to take. Obviously, they had won every single quarter. Outscored OKC by one in the first, by two in the second, and by four in the third. But I mean, losing 31 for OKC and 17 for the Pacers in the fourth. I mean, that's just something you can't do. And if they're shooting that poorly and they still somehow manage to squeak out a win, that's probably not a good sign going forward into game five. And even I mean, I personally think the game's going to go to seven. So even moving forward, if you have such a bad shooting performance from the other team and you're not able to take that 3-1 lead, I don't think that really bodes well. But I definitely think that mention of Alex Caruso, that guy was insane on defense, just getting those steals, getting those pucks from everywhere, just hounding Halliburton and all the key role players for the Pacers. And I think we should definitely discuss more about him because I mean, there's a reason they traded for him from the Bulls, and I think he's definitely an important role piece if they want to win this finals.
For sure. I mean, everybody was pretty surprised when the Bulls gave away Caruso for just Josh Giddey, um, who didn't really have much value after last season. And Caruso kind of flew under the radar a bit during the regular season when guys like Jalen Williams and Lou Dort and Cason Wallace were getting some of the spotlight. But he's been so big in these playoffs. I mean, this guy guarded Nikola Jokic in
Mhm.
the second round, and then in the Western Conference Finals took turns on Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle. And now here he is in the finals guarding Tyrese Halliburton, Pascal Siakam. I mean, he does not care. He'll guard the best player on the other side, regardless of how big they are. Super tough, super gritty, plays so smart. I mean, like you said, 5 steals in this game, just always in the right position. He's making about the same impact consistently that we talk about TJ McConnell making for the Pacers, but his championship experience, his size, his shooting ability just makes him such a valuable player for this OKC team. I think it's important to note also this. These two teams had a dead even pace and effective field goal percentage
Mhm.
in game four, as well as a turnover percentage at 14.5%. But the big keys that Oklahoma City won, offensive rebound percentage at 32%, while Indiana's was just at 18%. Four offensive rebounds for Chet Holmgren, three for Isaiah Hartenstein. As Oklahoma City went back to the big lineup, that was important to get them some extra shots, as well as free throw rate. Free throws are something I think a lot of people talk about with this OKC team, especially with SGA, but 44% free throw rate for Oklahoma City, 38 free throws. They shot 34 of 38 on those, with Williams also going 11 of 11. I mean, it seems simple to say, but you make free throws, you typically have a better chance at winning. They're free throws. And with the way that Benedict Mathurin missed free throws at the end of this game, it just shows you how important it is to take the money that you can get.
Yeah, 1,000%. On the topic of free throws, Halliburton had his first free throws of the series in this game. He had zero in the first three games, which is absolutely insane. I mean, you don't normally see that with a star player. Obviously, Halliburton's more of an assist guy and take the points when he can get them, not really necessarily going for like the ISO and trying to drive to the basket and get those free throws, but kind of crazy that these were his first three of the entire series. But yeah, I mean, Mathurin missed those free throws late. If you want to win the game, you definitely need to hit your free throws and getting free throws and being able to attack the basket and try to go for those free throws is definitely a big skill. There's a reason why it's factored into the true shooting percentage. And yeah, I just think that free throws are definitely a big part of this game. I want to bring our attention to Obi Toppin. I feel like he was probably the most impactful role player for this game, just doing everything, uh, catching those lobs, playing on defense. I think he's been a really important part of this team, and I think definitely if Mathurin had just played a bit better, they probably would have squeaked out the win. Um, yeah, this was just a hard game for the Pacers. They had everything going for them in the first three quarters, and then just completely just melted down in the fourth.
Yeah, similar to OKC in game one. But yeah, it's a three-game series. Two of those games are in OKC, and it's hard not to like the Thunder in a three-game series where they have two of those games at home. But if we've learned anything in these playoffs, it's never count out the Indiana Pacers, and it'll be exciting to see how Indiana bounces back, or how Oklahoma City continues with their momentum. But we're gonna switch gears real quick and move on to a little bit of a review. Uh, the two best teams in the East this year didn't have the seasons that they expected come playoff time. The number one seed Cleveland Cavaliers won 64 games. They were dominant all season long, had a 15-0 start, but lost in the second round to this Pacers team in 5 games, including three of those losses being at home. And the Boston Celtics, the reigning champions, lost in the second round to their rival, the New York Knicks, a team that they dominated in the regular season. So we're going to start with the Celtics. Obviously, the biggest storyline is Jason Tatum and his Achilles injury that he suffered in Game 4. Given the timing of the injury, you would probably expect him to be out probably the entire season next year, which puts the Celtics team in a bit of a perilous position with their payroll nearly $200 million this year, but that'll jump to $227 million in committed money next year. And I mean, clearly not a championship team without Tatum.
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest thing that I just circled a bunch of times was do they really have enough offense? I think they definitely still have the defensive pieces with, Derek White, Drew Holiday, but some of their main pieces are getting older. And like you said, if they don't have Jason Tatum for an entire year, I mean, he's an all NBA guy who can, drop 30 for you on a nightly basis. But without him, are you really going to be able to put the offensive workload on Jaylen Brown? Is that really someone you can trust? Obviously, he's a very good player, but he's been playing next to Jason Tatum his entire career, and I think we'll see. It's probably going to be a bit harder for him to be guarded by the 1A defender, especially with these major guys like Drew Holiday and Al Horford getting a bit older now.
Yeah, I mean, Drew Holiday is one of those guys where I mean, he's 35 years old. He's got 3 years left on his deal, including a player option. His quality of play really declined this year. Known as a defensive leader, didn't really feel that impact as much as we have in years past. His offense, well, he doesn't really have a huge offensive role with the Celtics team with all the guys they have. But that contract might be a bit of a hindrance to their ability to retool this roster. Kristaps Porzingis heading into the final year of his contract, still a very good player, but I mean the narrative remains the same. He just cannot stay healthy, and that was the case this entire season, especially late with this mysterious illness he had. Um,
Yeah.
couldn't be in the lineup consistently. Couldn't play consistent minutes. Um, Derek White, I feel like Derek White and Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are probably the foundational pieces here, as well as
Mhm.
Peyton Pritchard with his cost controlled deal. But for Boston, you've got so many draft picks that have gone out to build this roster, draft picks that are frozen because of being in the second apron. And how do they retool this roster with so much money already committed? And I can't see a team that'll be willing to take on the contract of Drew Holiday or even Kristaps Porzingis. So it'll be interesting to see how they address that from a cap standpoint. But I know you had some more takes on, I mean, potentially even breaking up Tatum and Brown.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this is definitely like a retooling sort of year. I think, I mean, any team that does not have their best player is not going to be as good uh as they should be. I think a big thing is they still definitely have some major pieces off the bench as well. They have Pritchard, they have Hauser, they have Cornette, but you don't like without Tatum, Tatum was a big wing, a guy who could defend and also score. Without him, do you necessarily have that wing play? And can Jaylen Brown step up to that? And I think Jaylen Brown has been a definitely a great player, right? He won their Finals MVP in their championship year, but I think maybe is it time to retool? Is it time to try to get younger and maybe ship some pieces out so that you can start looking towards the future? Because coming off an Achilles like Tatum has, obviously you've seen like KD has been very successful even after his Achilles injury, but anything can happen, right? So is this maybe a chance to look at the future, take that 1 year off, or is it still the ownership's, in that I think they just sold the team, right? Or is it still in
Yeah.
the process? Yeah. So is the new ownership kind of focused on, okay, we already have these pieces, maybe it's time to just try to keep going for the win? I think it's definitely going to be hard. This is a really really contentious time for the Celtics. New ownership, major players being injured, players getting older. You don't really have that much youth. I personally think they should retool. I don't think they have the championship ability, but I think with these new owners, it might be a little bit harder for them to take that plunge and try to retool with new players.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, the Achilles injury. Tatum is 27 right now, so he'll be 28 in a year.
Hmm.
Um, and that's typically, an athlete or at least an NBA player's prime. But like you said, we simply don't know how he's going to recover from this. And he's not a player that I would say, he builds his game around his athleticism, but it's definitely important for him, his explosiveness, his ability to get into the paint. Um, yeah, so a lot of unknowns, difficult decisions for the Celtics this summer. And we could say the same thing about the Cleveland Cavaliers. Had their best season in franchise history that didn't include LeBron James.
Hmm.
64 wins, first seed. Uh, Swept the Miami Heat in the first round, but then disappointing result in their series with the Pacers. Multiple blown leads, including that game two blown lead against the Pacers. They were up like 8 points in the final minute and lost. Looking ahead, you got, Darius Garland just underwent surgery for his toe injury. He's going to miss time next year. There's questions about, should Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley be broken up? Because Allen has struggled now in three straight postseasons. Uh, it's a question of whether he and Mobley can really be successful come playoff time, especially with Mobley going to be entering the first year of his max rookie extension. You got Mitchell already on a big contract. Yeah, I mean, $218 million in committed salary for next year, and not really sure if there's much room to grow here for this roster as currently constructed.
Yeah, I mean, on the flip hand, like the way they're currently constructed is a very good team, right? You have star power, you have major guys off the bench, you have a cohesive system with Kenny Atkinson. But yeah, definitely. How do they grow from this, right? Darius Garland is a fantastic facilitator when he's on the court, but I think he's been plagued by injuries, especially in like this like last like month, like 2 months. And I think like if he's just not on the floor, then you put all your offensive workload on Donovan Mitchell, who's a fantastic player. But I mean, if you don't have your main facilitator, what do you do? So obviously they have two options. They can either trade Garland or keep Garland. Um, I definitely think they try to shop him once he's healthy, try to get him to a team that can maybe give them a role player or just some salary, just some money back so they can have a little bit more leeway in signing other players. But yeah, I definitely don't think that they should keep him just because of his availability, and I don't think the value that he brings is necessarily like important enough for them to, if they send him away, then there won't be a championship team anymore. But yeah, I definitely think they have the pieces already. Just crumbled away in that series against the Pacers.
Yeah, I mean, I think of this team a lot like this. I think about the Knicks. They've got highly paid players, star powers there. Um, is Darius Garland built for playoff basketball? I don't know. He's struggled now 3 straight years in the playoffs, just as Allen has. The question remains about Allen as well. Is he built for the playoffs? Um, I thought Evan Mobley was pretty solid this postseason, playing through injury in that second round. The DeAndre Hunter acquisition paid dividends for them in the regular season. He did have his struggles in the playoffs. Donovan Mitchell was amazing playing through injury as well. But their sixth man of the year candidate, Ty Jerome. He's an impending free agent. He's going to earn a lot more than $2.5 million. So they're going to have to find a way to get him back. Um, yeah, I mean, it's just, I hate to be a skeptic about all these teams, but is Mitchell, is he good enough to be the best player on a championship contender? I don't know. He had a lot of playoff failures in Utah. Not that they were his fault.
Mhm.
He had some great performances in the playoffs despite losing. But at some point, I guess like he's 28 years old. He's been in the league for a while, and he hasn't yet gotten over the hump that is the second round. It's hard. It's so hard to go from this step where the Cavs are right now, a team that's consistently good in the regular season and just falls short as one of the top four teams in the East. Um, yeah, I mean the East is weak. We know this, especially with the Tatum injury, the Damian Lillard injury in Milwaukee. Will he or won't he stay? Giannis Antetokounmpo with Milwaukee. Yeah, I mean the East is wide open, and I think this is a good time to address one of the comments we got on our previous episode that the Indiana Pacers are pretty much this generation's version of the 2011 Mavericks in the sense that they're 1 year wonder and probably won't be a threat for a championship later. And the reason I bring it up right now is because, like, why can't they be a threat in the future given the state of the East? I mean, uncertainty with Boston and Cleveland. New York's got some, they're trying to find a coach right now. We like Detroit, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to think that I wouldn't be picking Indiana to win the East heading into next year.
Yeah, I mean they had obviously like in the first 25 games of the season, I think they were like 10 and 15, so they obviously had their struggles this season. But I mean Indiana's still a very, I mean, not like young necessarily, but they definitely still have pieces that can be here for the foreseeable future. And I definitely don't think they're going to be a one-year wonder. They've shown that they have an offense, a game plan, a strategy that can be definitely successful in going far in the postseason. Um, yeah, I definitely think, especially with how weak this East is, I don't think the Pacers are going to be a one-year wonder. I think they're going to be very successful going forward. They have Halliburton, they have Siakam, they have their role players. Um, yeah, definitely, like you said, like this team is a good team. There's a reason why they're in the finals. Um, and yeah, I definitely think they're going to continue being good in the foreseeable future.
Yep.
And I
So
think another big thing is they have Rick Carlisle. I think the reason why the Cavs lost, one of the big reasons was Kenny Atkinson kind of just got outcoached by Rick Carlisle, especially in those big games and those big moments. And
for
I think,
sure,
I mean, he might not be a good coach at sometimes, and his rotations are a bit wonky in the regular season, but in the playoffs, this guy has shown that, Pacers, I don't think many people expected them to be tied with the Thunder in 4 games. But I think a major part has been Carlisle and his ability to kind of bridge that distance between his roster and the other team with that coaching. I definitely think that given that, they're still going to have him, I think they'll still be successful going forward.
for sure. I mean, Rick Carlisle is definitely one of the best coaches in the league, and Indiana's been doubted this entire season. A lot of people thought, myself included, that they would lose in the second round to Cleveland. I also thought, pretty good chance they would lose to the Knicks. I thought it would that Oklahoma City would win the finals in 5 games. Here
Mhm.
we are, game four, or just having completed game four, it's 2-2. So Indiana is going to continue to take that underdog narrative and run with it and keep moving people wrong.
Yeah,
Um,
1000%.
but yeah, uh, pretty good review of Boston and Cleveland. We'll see what they do their off seasons. Speaking of off seasons, we're going to switch gears here, talk a bit about the NFC East as part of our NFL team preview series. Last week, we talked about the NFC West. Make sure you check that preview out in episode one if you haven't already. But the NFC East, we absolutely have to start with America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to start, of course, with the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. Great 2024 season for them, obviously, 14-3.
Mhm.
Um, two very close playoff games to start off, but then destroyed the Commanders in the NFC title game, destroyed the Super Bowl champion Chiefs in the Super Bowl, and yeah, hoisted the Lombardi Trophy again for the second time in the past decade. Um, and I mean, what is not to like about this roster? The star power offensively, the cohesiveness defensively. What do you think we're going to see from Philadelphia in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, the name of the game in Philadelphia is success, and I think they're going to continue having that. They're still an extremely good team. I think they lost some key pieces on defense, but their offense is still, I mean, you have Jalen Hurts, you have Saquon Barkley, who's reigning offensive player of the year, rushed for 2,000 yards. Just a fantastic player who I think is gonna be good. We'll talk about that a bit later. Is he gonna be as good as last year? But I mean, last year they were second in rushing yards, second in points against. So they definitely had their strategy, which was to run the ball and suffocate people on defense. And I definitely think their offense is still up to par. And they were very effective in the draft this year and probably plugging up some spaces in or some of their holes in defense. I think they're still going to be successful. Like I could see them winning a ton of games. Obviously, they have that first place schedule, and the NFC East itself is a hard division. But if they won 13, 14 games, I would not be surprised at all.
Yeah, I mean, talking about those defensive losses they had, it was a lot. I mean, the guys who I felt were the best players on the field in the Super Bowl, Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, both
Mhm.
gone. Williams to the Patriots, Sweat to the Cardinals. Also, Brandon Graham, franchise legend, retired. Um, CJ Gardner-Johnson traded to Houston. So Darius Slay released, signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of losses defensively. And the concern I have for this team is something you touched on in your spiel, which is Saquon Barkley and his ability, or what I think his lack of ability to recreate his 2024 season. And
Mhm.
the reason I say that is because it's easy to forget how much concern we had about this team's ability to pass the ball last season. A lot of times it was just, hey, we have the best offensive line in the league. We have one of the best running backs in the league. Let's just give him the ball as much as possible, and he'll cover for our deficiencies. But Jalen Hurts is your quarterback. You got A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and you're still struggling to field a competent NFL passing offense. That's a concern to me. And then when you factor in the fact that Kellen Moore is now the head coach of the New Orleans Saints and is no longer your offensive coordinator. Another offensive coordinator change. This is their fourth OC in 4 years. Guys like Lane Johnson are getting older. I don't know. I mean, it's really tough to repeat in the league. That's why it was so impressive when the Chiefs did it. But it's especially hard for a running back to have a repeat season as Saquon Barkley did. Especially, I mean, Saquon Barkley's never had back-to-back really great years in his career. And I think Jalen Hurts had a kind of a rocky season. Um, I don't know. Like you said, this is still a very good team. I'm kind of grasping at straws, but I don't know if we're going to see a repeat in these dominant Eagles that we saw last year.
Yeah, I mean, 29th in passing yards last year. Probably not what you want to see from a Super Bowl winning team. Obviously, they were able to do it because they were so successful in running the ball, but what if Barkley goes down, right? You
Yep.
lost a lot of, not a lot of, but some key pieces on your offensive line. And what if someone on your offensive line goes down? Then your entire game plan, it kind of struggles a lot. So yeah, they definitely have the ability to be successful in that passing offense. Jalen Hurts, in my opinion, not necessarily top five, but definitely top 10. And you have, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, two very good wide receivers who can definitely stretch the field. So, yeah, I mean, the reason why there's a supposed Madden curse, right? The fact that a player does not do good the year that they're on the Madden cover is because it's really hard to replicate success 2 years in a row. And I think that Barkley, the reason or one of the main things about his tenure in New York was the fact that he wasn't necessarily healthy all the time. And I think 2 years of being healthy, obviously that's what we hope for. We hope that all players will be healthy so we can see high level football and see really talented players go all the way. But I definitely think it's gonna be a bit more of a struggle to stay healthy. He's a year older. He had a really effective season last year that probably did a lot of wear and tear on his body. Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be interesting seeing if they're able to transition from a completely running offense to maybe a bit half and half so that they can try to preserve Barkley for maybe the playoffs.
Yep. And with all the concerns I had, I'm still picking this team to win the NFC East.
Yep.
Um, and we'll get into that as we touch on these other teams. But I want to talk about the Washington Commanders now. Hot shot of the league. What a season! I mean, this is a 4-13 team in 2023. Draft a new quarterback, new head coach, new ownership, new general manager, clean house in Washington. First year on the job, 12-5, and an NFC title game appearance led by the amazing performance of Jaden Daniels. One of the best rookie quarterback seasons in recent memory. And it's hard to imagine that the arrow is anywhere but up for this team in the short and long term.
Yeah, I mean they're a young team with a lot of important vets. You have Austin Eckler, who's probably really effective in helping Brian Robinson Jr. They were third in rushing yards last year. I think they can definitely replicate that success with their two major pieces, their quarterback and their running back being a year older. I think something we should draw attention to is that McLaurin situation. Obviously he hasn't gotten that new contract that he's wanted. Do you think that plays any effect in if they trade him or if he doesn't get that contract in the style of football that they're able to play this year?
I don't think it's a huge deal. I mean, the Commanders know how important Terry McLaurin is to their locker room, to their
Mhm.
roster, to Jaden Daniels. I don't think there's any chance that he's traded. Um, I think there will be a resolution before this becomes a huge thing. The concern I have, you mentioned this is a young team. They're actually deceptively old. If you
Mhm.
look at their splits from last year in terms of who was playing the most snaps on this team, a lot of older guys like Bobby
Yeah,
Wagner,
yeah.
Marshawn Lattimore, um, Austin Eckler, as you mentioned. Terry McLaurin's no, young spring chicken. You
Mhm.
bring in a veteran like Deebo Samuel. You got Zach Ertz at tight end. Bring in Laramie Tunsil. A lot of older guys in this team. And the reason that brings me concern is because they're more prone to injury when you get older.
Yeah.
I do not believe in the sophomore slump. Um, so if the Commanders do struggle this year, I do not think it's going to be because of Jaden Daniels. However, I don't know if Jaden Daniels can lift up a team that slumps around him.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe this McLaurin situation leads to him starting slow, and maybe the defense isn't as good this year. Not that they were great last year, but I don't know. I just have a feeling that they exceeded expectations so highly last year. 12-5, nobody expected that. I mean, if I had to say right now, I don't know if this team's really going to make the playoffs. But again, I don't think that'll be because, Jaden Daniels suddenly struggles in year two. I think he's showed enough that he's able to adapt to different defenses and situations. But it's so hard to be a quarterback and, lift up your surroundings if they're crumbling around you. And Daniels can do it better than 99% of the quarterbacks. But yeah, I mean, growth isn't linear, and so maybe we see a bit of a stagnant year from the Commanders this year.
Yeah, definitely. I think that they do need to build up that defense as well, like you mentioned. They have a lot of offensive pieces, but defense was, middle of the pack. And if you want to win a Super Bowl, you probably can't have a middle of the pack defense unless your offense is insane. The big question I had for them, so I think we already answered it for the Eagles. Mine was, can the offensive pieces handle the workload again? And we kind of question if Barkley could. I think my biggest question for the Commanders is just can they win in their division, right? You have the Eagles, who are a fantastic team. You have the Cowboys, who I think we'll touch on them a bit later, not necessarily a bad team. And then you have the Giants. Maybe you're fine with that, but can they really win in their division? Looking at their schedule, they don't have a bad schedule. Um, but they do have a lot of key pieces. You have the Bears that are a good team. You have Kansas City, you have Detroit, you have Denver, you have Minnesota. And then of course you have the Eagles and the Cowboys. So I definitely think they're not gonna probably be as good as last year just because their schedule is a lot harder and their division itself is just a war zone. But yeah, I definitely think they're a good team that can definitely be good in the future.
Yeah, I mean, they played the NFC North this year. That's, in my opinion, the best division in football.
Hmm.
You also play the AFC West, another one of the better divisions. But I'm looking at the final 3 weeks of the season for Washington. Host Philadelphia on December 20th, then hosted Dallas the ensuing Thursday, then at Philadelphia to finish off the season.
Yep.
Those 3 games could decide their year. Um, Philadelphia, I think, is a bad matchup for Washington because of how good they are in the trenches. Washington does not have a strong pass rush, nor do they have a super imposing offensive line. The addition of Tunsil helps there, although, the Texans traded Tunsil for a reason.
Mhm.
So I don't expect him to just be, one of the best tackles in football with no concerns about him. But yeah, I mean, Commanders still a good team, probably one of those teams that I have on the wild card bubble. Um, the Cowboys, similarly in that group, I just don't really know what to think about the Cowboys. I mean, they brought in George Pickens to finally get that second threat alongside CD Lamb.
Yep.
But then you look at their running back group, Javonte Williams at starter, Miles Sanders is their second guy. Offensive line, you lose Zach Martin, who's a franchise legend. Um, Defensively, Michael Parsons still doesn't have his contract. Trayvon Diggs, is he going to be healthy? I don't know. I mean, I felt like Dallas was a team that needed significant overhaul after last year, and we just didn't get that. We got a lot of moves on the margins apart from the Pickens acquisition. So, what's your take on Dallas, and what do you think they can accomplish this year?
Yeah, I mean, big thing is obviously new coach, no more Mike McCarthy. So maybe, they're able to get over that hump with just the fact that they don't have a no Mike McCarthy anymore. But the fact is that they're probably just not a good team. They're very average. Dak Prescott, okay quarterback. Can he stay healthy? Can he really make like impactful games? Can he be clutch, stuff like that? I just personally, I don't think he's enough to take them all the way. And yeah, like you mentioned, Pickens, right? Great player when he's not like, fighting his teammates and stuff like that. And obviously, Dallas has other good pieces. You have CeeDee Lamb, so George Pickens won't be the best receiver anymore. Will that tone him down a little, maybe? But yeah, there's a lot of things in limbo with this team. How will Schottenheimer be good? Will he be good? Will he be effective and really, using this offense and defense? And another big thing for me is like, is the defense actually that good besides those key pieces that you mentioned? You have Diggs, who will he stay healthy? You have Deron Bland, who was very good last year. You have Micah Parsons, who still doesn't have his new contract. Yeah, this team just like I feel like they're just not good enough, right? They went, I believe, 8-9 last year. I think that's kind of their cap for this year as well, maybe 10 wins, but they're just not a good enough team in that division.
Yeah, 7-10 last year for the
Okay,
Cowboys.
yeah.
Um, the Parsons thing, no contract. I like that he's performing or at least participating in drills. So
Hmm.
he won't be completely holding out or anything. Not that I think it's a bad thing to hold out for your money, but hopefully that he was able to stay healthy through camp and he gets his deal that he's worked really hard for. He definitely deserves every penny. Um, yeah, I mean, about your Pickens point, this offense runs through CD Lamb. Nobody's going to get that twisted. And
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if George Pickens is frustrated at his targets. Um, Look, this team still can't run the ball. I mean, Javonte Williams, it's been multiple years since he's been considered as a guy who could potentially be good.
Hmm.
His that injury just wiped out a bunch of his career progress. I don't know if he can get back. Um, Dak Prescott, consistently. good but underwhelming is I think what I would classify him as.
Hmm.
Offensive line, you've got some decent pieces there, but it's no longer that offensive line of old with Tyron Smith and Zach Martin and all these guys that made a brick wall for their runners. Defensively, um, can they stop the run? That's a big question. I just don't think that. I mean, I don't think they made significant improvements enough to be a challenger for the playoffs. But no matter how good they are, just know that we're going to be seeing a lot of the Cowboys because no matter what, the NFL is going to put them on prime time and force us to
Yeah.
watch them. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so frustrating to tune on to Sunday Night Football in like in November and you watch like the Cowboys and the Giants. Like, what are we doing? But yeah, I mean, like you said, 8-9 is what you said they would be about, maybe up to 10 wins. I think this is probably an 8-win team, maybe 9 wins, something like that. I don't see them being a significant playoff threat, but they could definitely play spoiler late in the year, as could the New York Giants, who are, I mean, I think we can both agree they're going to be last in this division
Hmm.
as part of this continuing decade-long rebuild that they've been in, with the one aberration being 2022. Um, big things for the Giants this offseason. No new head coach or general manager. They ran it back with Brian Dable and Joe Schoen. Russell Wilson, new quarterback, as well as the first round pick Jackson Dart, um,
Oh my God.
who is currently third string behind Wilson and Jameis Winston.
Uh,
Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, this actually does feel like a little bit more of a feisty team than I mean, it's definitely more imposing to have Russell Wilson than Daniel Jones, even if Russell Wilson's not that great anymore. What I love about this team is their pass rush. Abdul Carter, third overall pick, joins Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and Kayvon Thibodeau
mhm.
in this suddenly imposing front that could really cause some problems for some teams. They also added Javon Holland in free agency, Paulson Adebo at corner. I mean, the defense, I don't really have many problems with the defense, if I'm being honest, but Russell Wilson at quarterback with a pretty poor offensive line and really only one consistent playmaker with Malik Neighbors. 5, 6 wins, that's what I'm feeling.
Yeah, I mean, definitely looking back at or looking at that defense, that pass rush, fantastic, maybe best in the league if they can put everything together with their rookie Abdul Carter, who's definitely a fantastic player. Secondary, not too shabby as well. Linebackers, maybe a little shaky, but I think with a good pass rush and maybe an effective secondary, they can definitely be a really cohesive defense. I think if their offense is able to do anything, maybe they could be a top 10 defense next year or top 15. But yeah, looking at your point about Malik Neighbors, they definitely have some strong sophomores. Malik Neighbors was good last year when he was healthy. But that's a concern once again. Is he going to be healthy this year? And is there really enough receiving options besides him, right? You have Wandale Robinson who PPR demon, but is he actually like a good player? I don't know if Neighbors is going to be able to shoulder that load.
Yeah, Tyrone Tracy Jr. at running back, fifth round pick, had a pretty solid year apart from some fumbling issues.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, Wandale Robinson, Darius Slayton, Jalen Hyatt, there's no secondary threats in the passing game besides Malik Neighbors. And when you got a quarterback like Wilson, who's been known to not really go through his reads that well, I could totally see him staring down Malik Neighbors a bunch and potentially throwing some picks. The question for the Giants is when does Jackson Dart get a shot this season, if at all? I feel like when you're a rebuilding team, you kind of got to give him a shot at some point. Maybe 10 or 11 weeks of Wilson or Winston before we see Jackson Dart. Um, but I think and you also got to address the coaching situation next year. Is Brian Dable the guy again? It's like a year by year thing with him now. Um, just not a lot to like on this Giants offense once again. Even if Andrew Thomas at left tackle can stay healthy, yeah, I said it before. 6 wins is probably their ceiling if that defense can like will them to some wins, but just not a very inspiring team. And yet inevitably, I'm sure if I look at their schedule, there's going to be a Sunday night game that they're playing at some point. Yeah, week 3, they host the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday Night Football.
Week 6
Why?
is Thursday Night Football. They have a Monday
Yep.
night game in week 13. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, at least we don't have to see them on prime time against the Cowboys at some point. That's a relief to me, but I think when you look at their schedule, Washington, Dallas, Kansas City, the Chargers, those first four games, 0 and 4.
Yep,
Um,
definitely.
then you got the Saints in week 5, which might be one of the worst games on the entire NFL slate this year.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I like the pass rush, kind of like the defense. Don't like much more about this Giants team. So they're definitely my pick to go fourth in division.
Yeah, my question for you is, do you think this is another tank year, or do you think they're going to try to get some wins for that, a little bit more experience for the rookies and sophomores, or do you think it's kind of just a done deal? And kind of adding on to that question, do you think if they get 5, 6 wins again, like you predicted, is this the last year of the ball and the general manager as well?
Well, that's a tough question to answer because um, first of all, tanking in the NFL is really not a it's
Yeah.
really more of a front office thing.
Uh,
Coaches are going to coach as hard as they can. Players are going to play as hard as they can. But I suppose what you mean is, are they going to keep playing Wilson and keep Dart on the bench? And I think the answer to that is probably yes, because I can't see Wilson playing hysterically bad enough to, force the coaches to pull him. At the same time, I also think Dable has an incentive to keep Dart on the bench as long as possible because the longer Dart is unproven, the more leash he has in his job.
yeah.
I personally don't really know what to make of Dable because I mean he salvaged Daniel Jones into a playoff appearance his first year on the job, and then it's just been brutal since then. I don't know much about Jackson Dart, I'll be honest. From the things I've heard about him, I don't think he's a super high level prospect. He definitely is not going to have a great time on this offense. So to answer your question in as succinct as possible, I think yes, they are going to chase wins. In the sense that they're going to play Russell Wilson until the wheels fall off.
Yeah. I mean, I think in summary, like they're not a good team and they have a lot of weak spots. I think we'll definitely see, like you mentioned, first 4 weeks are gonna probably go 0 and 4. I think by that New England game or even well in advance, they're probably gonna shake some stuff up. Week 13. They have a extremely hard schedule, right? You have to play Philly, you have to play SF, the Bears, Green Bay, Detroit. Like that's a ringer to go through. And this is not a good team to be able to go against them. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised in the first 10 weeks they have like 1 win or 2 wins.
Yeah.
Even that is saying a lot, right? So I definitely think this team is probably not as good. I mean, unless you have any other points, we can also go to our YouTube comment regarding some of the stuff we talked about last week.
Yeah, I think to kind of finish up with this discussion, brutally hard schedule for the Giants. They have a week 14 bye, which
Hmm.
I could see that being the final week that we see Russell Wilson with this team, and they could say, okay, season's over. We're like what 2-11 or something. Just
Yeah.
give Jackson Dart a chance. Final 4 weeks: Washington, Minnesota, at Vegas, and then Dallas. Um, yeah, not much more to say about the Giants. If I were going to pick this division standings right now, it's pretty boring, but I would just rehash what it was last year. Philadelphia number one, then Washington, then Dallas, then the Giants. But I don't think any of these teams are going to be um, super imposing, including Philadelphia, the reigning champs. So yeah, I'll give you the final word here, and we can address that comment.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree with you in terms of the standings. I think all the teams are going to be a little bit worse than last year. I don't think the NFC East is the best division in football. I mean, last year they probably weren't either with the NFC North, or not in basketball, sorry, in football. Um, But yeah, I just think that this division is strong. It's very top heavy, but I think a lot of them are going to be underwhelming. Going back to one of our YouTube comments from last week, talked about is SF going to be better on defense after losing some key pieces? Is Seattle going to take a step back while having a top 5 defense? Is Devontae Adams going to be better than Cooper Kupp? And is the defensive line of the Cardinals enough to have an improvement with their 7 additions and uh, kind of work with the offensive play and get some wins for the season.
I mean, to put it plainly, the answer to all of those questions is yes.
Mhm.
San Francisco is going to be better on defense with the way that they addressed this draft, prioritizing their defense and the addition of Robert Saleh. I mean, you can't understate how important he's going to be. Um, is Seattle going to take a step back? Yes, they are because of the losses offensively, Geno Smith and DK Metcalf. They also are not going to have a top 5 defense. Top 10? Sure. Top 5, I don't know about that. Is Devontae Adams that much better than Cooper Kupp? Yes, he is. purely based on availability, and obviously talent, but even just based on availability alone, I would take Devontae Adams in a heartbeat. And did the defensive line of the Cardinals improve enough with their seven additions? Well, I mean, I think that answers itself. Seven additions, probably very important. I don't think the defensive line was that's like the hugest issue for Arizona. It wasn't good, but it'll definitely help them be better. We talked about the Cardinals a lot last episode and how they're going to be better than they were last year, but their ultimate ceiling is going to be dependent on who who is going to make a step offensively, especially if Kyler Murray can take the next leap and become a star. But yeah, I mean, it's a very layered question, and shout out to our YouTube audience. But yeah, I think all of those questions, the answer is yes.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. Yeah, whoever left a comment both on Spotify and YouTube, once again, thank you. Very helpful in our discussion and creating our podcast for the next week. But yeah, definitely like SF is better just with Robert Saleh. I think just having that stabilizing presence is going to be really effective. Seattle just I don't think they're going to be a good team. Just they haven't taken any steps forward really. Devontae is better than Cooper Kupp because Cooper Kupp just wasn't healthy last year and he wasn't good. And then Cardinals, their offensive play wasn't that great last year. Obviously they had James Conner, who was a big piece, but I think that defense is definitely going to be a big part in whatever success that they have this year.
Yep. So that's pretty much going to wrap it up here for episode two. Um, we're hopefully going to release this on June 15th, Sunday. And next week, we're going to get you with more coverage of the NBA Finals, hopefully including a preview of Game 7. I think I'm really hoping that this goes to a seven-game
Yeah.
series. Um, but yeah, and then we'll also touch on an intriguing topic about how to fix the NBA, as well as continuing with our NFC previews with the NFC North, which I think is the best division in football.
Mhm. Yeah, so thank you guys all for listening. I hope you enjoy. Once again, keep leaving comments on our Spotify and YouTube, share with your friends, and let us know whatever you guys want to hear. We're just very excited to continue with this podcast and continue talking about something that we really love. And yeah, we'll catch you guys in the next one.